Council meeting for Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, 9 a.m. is hereby called to order. I would like to welcome everyone here this morning. I would ask that you please turn your electronic devices to the silent mode, if you would. And I would like to advise that we are being audio and video taped today, so all comments will be recorded. I have no changes to the agenda today. Are there any changes to the agenda today? Hearing none, a motion to approve the agenda as circulated would be in order. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Fairley. Any discussion? Are you ready for the question?
Question.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Thank you. It is unanimous. We have no presentations today. Under 4.0, tabling of petitions. We have no petitions to table today. Are there any petitions to table? Second call for petitions. Third and final call for petitions. We have no petitions today. That brings us to 5.0, public question comment session, where we allow members of the public to speak for up to 5 minutes. Please state your name and your address and speak at the mic, please. And if it's a little high, perhaps you could lower it some.
I'm only short. Yeah, Leon Robertson, College Street in Liverpool. Leon Robertson, College Street in Liverpool.
If you'd like to speak a little closer, Leon.
Okay, thank you. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. It's good to see under 13.1 coming up on the agenda there about a new business expansion there with gas tank and restaurant on the old Fort Mattoon Road. It's good to see that they are wanting to put a new business in there. It'll certainly help on the tax rate, and if it gets approved. And under the second quarter statements, financial statements, notice there the revenue from government transfers is down at about 25 to 30%, but I assume that most of them from the other governments come in a little later, and they should be up to 100% by the end of the year. Is that correct?
That's correct, Leon.
Okay. And still, with respect to the financial statements, under expenses under fiscal services, it's up to 74.67. And from looking through there, it looks like that the transfer there of just over $1 million for the Trestle Trail. That would make the difference there.
We are a recipient of funding by some of the donating individuals, and we do push that out to Queen's Rails and Trails through the project. We have budgeted $1.5 million in this year's budget to support the Trestle Trail upgrade. So there may be other items in there which at this point I can't clarify for you.
Okay, but they're showing there just over $1 million that we're putting into the Trestle, to the Rails and Trail system.
There has been $1 million into that project up to this point, and there will be more to go. It's probably a $1.3, $1.4 million project when it's completed.
That the municipality will be providing.
We will be handling some of the money for some of those that have donated to that project. We hold it in trust.
Those funds are in there as well, like,
yeah,
that come in there. So it's not all coming from the taxpayer.
No.
In that sense. Thank you. And I noticed as well that in here, you're looking at getting a contract in place at Queen's Place with respect to the canteen there, or whatever it's called.
That is up for deliberation today, correct?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leon. Any other member of the gallery would like to speak this morning? All right, hearing none, we will move on now to the next item on the agenda, which is 6.0, approval of minutes. Under 6.1, regular council meeting, September 22nd, 2020. Are there any errors or omissions in those minutes to circulate? Hearing none, a motion to approve those minutes would be in order. Moved by Councilor Muse, seconded by Councilor Fisk. Any discussion? Are you ready for the question?
Question.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Thank you. It is unanimous. 6.2, public hearing, September 21st, 2020. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes of the public hearing? Hearing none, a motion to approve approve those as circulated would be in order. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kelly, seconded by Councilor Crowe. Any discussion? Are you ready for the question?
Question.
All those in favor of the motion? Yeah, all those that can vote have voted, and it is unanimous. We had one member who wasn't able to attend, so therefore is not able to vote. Moving to 7.0, dangerous or unsightly premises, we have nothing to bring forward under that today. 8.0, economic development, we have nothing under economic development today. 9.0, corporate services, nothing to raise today under 9.0. That brings us to 10.0, engineering and public works. And I would ask if Adam Grant, our Assistant Director of Engineering Works, would like to come to the presentation desk.
Morning.
We have 10.1, Works Department loader, PW 052-2021 recommendation. Who would like to take the lead on 10.1? Councilor Fisk.
I so recommend that the Council of the Region of Queens approve the purchase of a new Caterpillar 938 loader of Atlantic tractors and equipment for a purchase price of $281,800 plus HST.
Seconder to that? Councilor Clancy. Is there any discussion on this motion? Councilor Clancy.
Just like to know background, if you don't mind.
So this machine's pretty fundamental to the operation landfill MRF. It will replace a 15-year-old machine. We've gone out for pricing from our two major suppliers. And that's what brought forward these prices.
What we do with the old one, just.
The old one be traded in, and that's, I think, included in the background.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
No, better, that's fine.
Okay. Councilor McLeod?
I was just want to ask the same question about what was happening with the other one.
Do you have any questions on this item? Are you ready for the question?
Question.
All those in favor of the motion? It is unanimous, thank you. That brings us to 10.2, trucking of bulk salt tender. There's a recommendation. Who would like to take the lead? Councilor Johnson?
I'd like to recommend that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality approve that tender PW 04 2020-2021 trucking of bulk salt be awarded to Van Dyke Excavating and Trucking for the tender price of $39.12 per metric ton plus HST for the 2021 winter season.
Second for that?
Second.
Councilor Fisk? Any questions on this issue? Councilor Fancy?
What was the price last year? I can't remember.
Last year, the price was Van Dyke's at a price of $41 plus HST per ton.
So it's actually gonna be cheaper this year.
A little bit, yeah.
Why is that? Is there
It's hard to know what's in their mindset when they bid these, but you can presume that the lower fuel
I didn't know-
prices would.
I didn't know if salt was maybe cheaper or is it?
And this isn't for the price supply, it's just strictly for delivery.
Right, okay.
Any other councilor have a question? Councilor Johnson?
Is that from Pugwash, is it?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Any other councilors? Are you ready for the question?
Question.
All those in favor of the motion? It is unanimous. Thank you, and thank you all. That takes us to 11.0 finance, and under 11.1, we have cost of living adjustment. We have Councilor Susan McLeod sponsoring that. Councilor McLeod?
Well, we need the recommendation first before we discuss it.
Yep.
Okay, so do I make a recommendation? I guess if I
You make it as a
explain
motion,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. I move that the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality approve a cost of living increase of 2% effective the next pay period of the 2020-21 fiscal year to all non-unionized, full-time, and part-time employees excluding Hillsview Acres.
Seconder to that? Do we have a seconder to that motion? Third and final I'll call for a seconder.
I'll second it just to have a
Councilor
discussion.
Johnson seconds it. Councilor McLeod, would you like to speak on that?
We've had a discussion on this cost of living increase, two previous council meetings. It was brought to our attention by our CAO that if we approved this, that we would be against a policy. I asked the CAO what policy, written policy we had in that respect, and there's no written policy. His response to me was the fact that it was a policy that was verbally indicated over the years, and there's nothing written in our book, so we would not be going against our MGA or our written policy. So I felt that the staff of the Region of Queens that are non-unionized certainly deserve to have consideration over and above the consumer price index, which is minus this time. However, the consumer price index, if you recorded it today, would certainly be an increase. And because of the cost of living of folks with this pandemic and other additional expenses, that this staff are not being able to, that they're incurring. And they did not take advantage of the government subsidies. They stayed on staff, they stayed here and they worked. And I just felt that there should be due consideration for that, considering how well the staff work. Staff morale certainly could be declined if we did not give them some consideration in these hard times. And I'm very disappointed that it took a long time to get seconded.
So noted. Any councilor would like to speak on this issue? Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yeah, I'd like to start by saying that this isn't a cost of living increase because there is no cost of living increase. As was stated 3 times previous to this council, either in council or through email, that the cost of living index was minus 0.5. Whether it's a verbal policy or a written policy, this is what's been brought before this council for consideration, the cost of living increase every single year. And we've always gone with the recommendation, as far as I'm aware in this council, we've always gone with the recommendation of the finance department when it comes to CPI. Now, I feel that I agree with our CAO. The staff are not under a contract to receive guaranteed CPI. That would be different. The staff have their annual appraisals done. They'll receive increases based on their work performance as it is. I think in these times that to spend our taxpayers' money when a lot of taxpayers have lost their jobs and currently not working and struggling themselves to pay their taxes, to use their money to give our staff an increase, especially during our circumstances right now in the middle of an election, is inappropriate and not a good use of our taxpayers' money. Yes, our staff work hard. They get paid good salaries for working hard and doing their job. And they get annual increases based on their performances as well. And I do not believe, and I do not agree, and I do not think it's appropriate that this is brought before council yet again for us to discuss spending our taxpayers' money to give our staff an increase when so many of our residents are struggling right now.
Is that it, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you.
Any other councilors? I'm going to Councilor Johnson first off.
Okay, just a question, I think it's either for Jennifer or Chris or somebody. How much of a budget impact does this really look like? And I think, Chris, I appreciate
Councilor Johnson,
previous.
Councilor Johnson, this has been discussed at the last 2 council meetings, and I know that you didn't attend both of them. But it's about a $20,000 cost item in our budget.
Okay, but I want to correct you for one thing. I did attend my conference call, the meeting before last.
I said you didn't attend both. You did attend one by conference.
Okay, just want to make that clear.
Yep, and that's fair.
But I didn't get, I got all the other questions asked, but I'm just
thousand in budget?
All right.
Any other council? Councilor Fancy?
I was not.
Yes, you've already spoken, I'm coming back to you. I will be back. Councilor Fancy?
Is the CPI is a great barometer of telling us how the cost of living is going. But along with that comes other factors in which we've already talked about that. It isn't just food and such as it's gas, oil, and things where you see how it's affected out west and how things have been shut down and everything. But of course, the cost of living is going up no matter what with everything going on around about us. So is it an appropriate request? I think so. But do we want to go forward with this or not? That becomes our issue here as we talk about this. So I know also too with our CAO had mentioned before about I think it was 2 years ago. I think it was 2.0 and they got 2.8. So sometimes that fluctuates back and forth that you can gain or lose off the CPI. So it's I have to go with what our CAO has told us that that goes back and forth and you can gain or lose on it. So I would say that we don't do it at this time, but it's as I think it's a good gesture to look toward that for our staff, but I just can't support it at this time.
Thank you, Councilor Fancy. Councilor McLeod?
First of all, I would like to take offense to a comment that Deputy Mayor Kelly said that this is election time. This has nothing to do with election time. I take offense to that, and I would like to have that considered in the minutes.
It is election time, Councilor McLeod. You can't stray from that.
The
Whether it's a-
indication by the Deputy Mayor was in a different manner, so I've said my point, made my point.
Fair point taken.
The 2% is included in the budget. It's been approved by budget when we approved our budget for the 2020-21 term. So we're not spending money that has not been budgeted for. It was approved that council get an increase because that is the policy, and I understand the policy. The policy for this is based on the consumer price index, but we often say when we make policy, we should not hide behind policy. We should make sure that they're not written in stone. It's a suggestion or a recommendation of such. Recommendations are just recommendations. And we have an opportunity to discuss that, and that's what we're doing today. So my point is, I feel that our staff deserve that. They work hard. They are top-notch considering other municipalities. We should show that appreciation. In other ways, we do not. Talking about morale, years ago we used to have staff events, and now I know I may be getting off the subject, but in appreciation for what our staff do, a small token of this, which is a general annual consideration at this time of year, should be considered.
Thank you, Councilor McLeod. Councilor Fisk?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to just say that we went over this in the last couple council meetings. I thought the last council meeting that, as we discussed it, that the issue had come to a halt. So I understand Councilor McLeod has brought it up again and the recommendation. I just want to say to Councilor McLeod, I do not think that Deputy Mayor Kelly disrespected you in any way. You took it all wrong. Thank you.
Let's move on beyond that. Let's respect each other here today. Any other councilor have a comment? Deputy Mayor Kelly?
I'd just like to point out a couple of other things that the council increase is over 4 years. It does take into account the fact that it was minus 0.5 this year. And also based on our budget last time, even though this was included, We are expecting somewhere around a $300,000 loss just with regards to Queen's Place over COVID. So the next council that's sworn in will have a really tough job on budget time early next year, trying to figure out how to cover all of those losses and still manage to put forward all of the services supplied by the municipality.
Any other councillor have a comment? Deputy Mayor, would you like to take the chair? Speak. You can sit there.
Oh, sorry.
Do the chair.
Okay.
May I speak?
Yes.
Thank you. We operate a Region of Queens Council in a democracy. And I want to be very clear that we have the ability to add items and to put items on the agenda, either through myself, CAO, or councillor. And this item is no different. It is eligible for the agenda. It is on the agenda, and we are in discussion on this item. We have a policy, and as Councilor McLeod has stated, it's not a written policy, it's a precedent that's been here for years. We provide raises to staff at an amount equal to the Nova Scotia Consumer Price Index, which this year was a -0.5. We do not claw back raises previously given to staff. They deserve the raises they get. They do work hard, and I'm the first to agree to that. My difficulty is that an increase at this point, when the CPI has a -0.5, is an increase that the next council will receive an increase. And at a point in time when the Consumer Price Index is a negative, I do not feel that any member of council in the future should be receiving an increase as a result of a year such as this with a negative CPI. I'm a little embarrassed for staff because this is the third time that we've had this discussion, and it does take its toll that we are hearing council discussing this issue. As I said, it's an issue that can be discussed, it's able to be put on the agenda, and we're discussing it. But I will not be voting for this motion, and I will not be voting for it for the reasons that I've stated, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Daggett. Would you like the chair back?
I will, if you're willing to pass it back.
I'm not sure.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Councillor Johnson?
If I could, just exactly, these are all staff who have maxed out their bandwidth, I call it, for performance appraisal increases, correct?
Not necessarily, no. It's an increase across the board to non-union staff that would be within the Region of Queens offices.
Okay, so if you had room to move on performance, you would have that movement plus
You would.
the recommendation.
You would. If it were warranted to receive an increase due to a performance review.
Oh, okay. So I misunderstood. I thought it was only for those who had maxed out on their performance.
Across the board.
Thank you.
Councillor Frillick?
Just have a question about the policy or lack of policy. Would it be appropriate to have a policy in the future with new council?
It would not hurt. It would clarify issues that today have been brought to the forefront.
Right.
Our councillor remuneration states that we will receive the raises as are given to staff. It's not a written policy, but it's a precedent as a policy that's been utilized for years. So you make a good point that if it's formalized, then of course there's no question as to how it operates.
And we wouldn't have to go through this every time?
Well, possibly you may, but it would clarify how it
Well,
operates.
then we have a policy to back it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other councillor? Councillor Fancy?
Since this is our last meeting, I'd like to always, going forward, I'd like to think that everything we bring up is all for good. Nobody's trying to hurt anybody or anything like that. So as we go forward, I still think this is a good thing to bring forward, to talk about. Because if we didn't bring this forward, we don't talk about, we don't get the council fairly just brought forward, we don't get those discussions. And it all of a sudden it comes up and surfaces again. So I think it's a good thing for open discussion, not to be making points or shooting at each other, but it's a matter of let's bring these open for discussion and see where we go from.
Any other councillor would like to comment? for the question?
Question.
All those in favor of the motion? 1 for, those opposed? 7 opposed, it fails. I would ask our Director of Finance, Jennifer Keating-Hubler, if she can come forward to 11.2, second quarter financial statements ending September 30th, 2020. And these are presented to council today. They become a public document at this point. So if you look, give us an overview, Jennifer, that would be appreciated.
So you'll see our taxation revenues look to be about 98%. So in our budget, in our financial statement, we would have all of the taxation categories would be fully billed for the year. But the other items that are in that particular section are the D-transfer tax and our quarterly billings for sewer. So those would only be billed for half the year, and the D-transfer taxes would only be received for half the year. So that's why it's looking at a 98%. Provincial grant in lieu, we haven't received all of the provincial grant in lieu yet. That's assessed by the province once they complete the review of our SOEs, our statements of estimates. So when our budgets go in to the province, they assess our provincial grant in lieu, and that's paid at a later date. Our landfill revenues are all in at 50% for the year, of course. Recreation, you'll see under Queen's Place, there was some lost revenue in the off-season picked up this year. If you go further along in our budget, you'll see the valuation allowance that we budgeted for this year is $125,000. We didn't use all of that in the previous year, so I'm anticipating we won't be needing to use all of that valuation allowance in this year as well, as our uncollectibles are again steady paced with our payment arrangements. And we've got some additional revenue again with the property sales that are moving this year. Under our D-transfer tax, that's in 70% of the budget so far this year, although we're only at 50% of the year past. So it looks like we are trending upwards again on the D-transfer tax. And my general estimate as far as lost revenue recreation-wise and the valuation allowance being picked up and the D-transfer tax being picked up, we may only have a shortfall of about $160,000 or $170,000. So again, that's purely an estimate. We'll see how we end the year again this year. On page 7, you'll see that the contribution towards the Queens County Transit Society's van is in there. So they have purchased the van. So we've contributed the $25,000 that we had allocated in our budget for that. All of our insurances are in full for the year. We had some additional expenses, repairs required on some of our pump station and maintenance for the sewer. So we've got some line items that are fully spent under our sewer expenses. We've got some compressor repairs that were needed again under the sewer repairs. So those line items are showing a little bit higher, trending a little bit higher. There was a comment from the public gallery regarding the Trestle Trail Bridge money. So that $1,048,000 that you see being spent is a combination of outside donors for the Trestle Trail Bridge as well as our money. Also in that line item, and I'm going to change the name of that going forward, is our contribution towards the Alliance, the fiber op money. So actually $409,000 of that line item is for the Alliance and the fiber op running. And then you'll see a revenue line item on page 5, which offsets that. So that shows a breakdown of contributions from other sources, and then our gas tax money being transferred over as well. So it's about $539,000 so far towards the Trestle Trail Bridge project this year, and then the $409,000 for the Alliance.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any questions of Jennifer on this report? Councilor McLeod?
Jennifer, you say the 500,000, is that's from our own tax revenue, or is that including some other transfers from
So
other
the
sources?
409 for Alliant is gas tax money.
Yeah.
And then the 539,000 is actually made up of 200,000 of our money and 239,000 of outside source money,
For the trestle,
Trestle Trail, and the additional 100,000 will also be gas tax money, so.
okay, so, but we're taking 200,000 of our own funds for that.
So, for the Trestle Trail Bridge, we have budgeted 596,000 of their full project to be spent by the Region of Queens, which will be gas tax funded, not
Okay.
tax rated. And we have 500,000 in our budget for the Alliant, the fiber up runnings as well, so again, that's budgeted as being spent from gas tax.
Okay.
Councilor Johnson?
Jennifer, just the money for fiber op, is that our total contribution now for phase 1 and phase 2?
No. It's just what they've billed, so what's been a work in process, or progress to date.
But we've already approved funding for phase 2, right?
Right.
Okay.
We have, we've allocated 500,000 for each of phase 1 and phase 2 for the fiber op,
Okay, so
gas tax money.
we've got $1 million in the game.
We do.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other councilor? Councilor Fancy?
Jennifer, just a few little things here, like, I noticed, again, with the facade program, it's only 75, how did it spent this year, that people haven't asked for the money?
I don't know where those applications stand at the moment. That would be a question for Jenny Rocket and for Richard Wayne.
Okay, I didn't know if they were already out there and they just haven't spent yet, or if it's,
I would expect that the budget reflects the amounts that have been paid to the applicants, and until they submit their bills, it would not be included in that amount.
I believe there's a holdback.
okay, so they just haven't completed their paperwork, because I thought that's so low, I thought, because it's been so good for the years previous. Your deed transfer tax, it was budgeted at 350,000, we've got 245,000. So that's what, so budget is a guesstimate of what you were going to do. Is it, I thought we had a lot of houses being sold, so I thought it would be over and above, well, is that,
Well, and we'll see how we end the year. I budgeted conservatively again this year because that number has been higher than my budget for the
Right.
last 3 or 4 years, and I kind of expected it would start to kind of even itself out, and it hadn't yet again this year. But last month, the transfer tax, a normal year prior to the years where we had the substantial increases in sales, would have been probably around 28,000, and we had 56,000 in transfer tax last month, so
right.
it just shows that it's trending upward, that we are moving a lot of properties. There are a lot of property sales in our area. So we're 70% of a 50% budget, so it's going to, absolutely, we're going to have more money come in than I budgeted for.
Okay, so it's gonna go up and above. Okay, because it just looked like it was low, because I'm looking at every other house that's being sold, the money for the deed transfer.
So we're only 50% through the year, but we've got 70% of the budget received. So we've received 70% of what I budgeted for, although we're only 50% through the fiscal year.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it isn't, we're actually aren't down, we just do 50% of the year, so.
Right.
So if you looked at that and you doubled it, then we would be really, then we'd be 500,000.
So currently, we're trending about 20% over where I budgeted. So if that trend continues,
Yes,
we should end the year at about 20% over and above that 325.
that's good news.
It is.
Councilor McLeod?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Any other councilor? Just Councilor Fancy?
Just one other thing which I probably should know, but in the rentals, what is the trailer park?
Those are the lot leases that we have on Wall Street.
Oh, okay, now, it is the trailer park.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is, yeah. It's $45 a month,
Okay.
yeah, lot lease. We own the land, they own the mobile.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
We're inherited in for a long, long time. Those amounts have been there for a long time.
Any other councilor have a question? Are you ready for this? Well, there is no motion, so there's the question. Thank you for the update. The next item on the agenda agenda is 12.0. Recreation, Healthy Communities, 12.1. Food and beverage operations at Queen's Place Amira Center. Megan Roberts, our Director of Recreation and Healthy Communities, is approaching the presentation desk. Who would like to take the lead on this recommendation? Council first.
So recommend that the council of the region of Queens Municipality enter a proposed agreement for Taste of Saffron Food and Catering Service for food and non-alcoholic beverage operations at Queens Place Amira Center.
Seconded to that. Council Clancy. Would you like to give us the overview on this thing?
Sure. So as we're all aware, Taste of Saffron operated out of Queen's Place this previous year. The previous lease was up at the end of April. Of course, COVID hit the middle of March, so she wasn't there during April because we weren't open. At the beginning of March, staff and the board of directors chair at the time met with the operator in anticipation of that lease being up to discuss any issues that existed and kind of how to move forward, and had requested that she provide us with her thoughts on the lease that was currently in place and how we could work towards that new one. So we've worked with her, and what you see in your package today is what the agreed upon terms with her, and we're looking forward to moving forward.
Any questions of Megan?
Excuse me.
Councilor McLeod?
I just want to say, Megan, thank you for this. It's very difficult in these times to try to come up with an agreement where financially and there's issues with any businesses. And also the fact that the attendance at Queen's Place will not be as high as it always has been because of the measures in place. But I know that Ms. Ahmad has been a really good operator of the canteen. She's had very, very excellent reports from the patrons that go there, and she's very helpful and whatnot. And I know the staff certainly appreciate having that there because it's a service that's really needed. So I'm really pleased to see this come to fruition.
Any other councilor? Councilor Johnson?
I'd just like to speak to it on the fact from, as a board member, I know the board is kind of in flux, but I know the board is very happy to see that service there. And as Megan sits on the board, you know, that's something that showcases Queen's Place, and a quality service is what's going to bring that in there. So I'm glad to see this brought into a timely fashion with the leasee, I guess, being happy with what's going forward. So thanks for bringing that to conclusion.
Any other councilor? Councilor Clancy?
The only question I have to ask about this, with COVID as it is, we are like we are today, but what if something happens, everything shuts down and things like that? Because, you know, it can easily happen. We see what's going on up in New Brunswick and things like that. How does that affect us?
So there's a clause in there that should herself under, as she's classified as a restaurant, or Queen's Place as a recreation facility get closed due to COVID, that there would be no payments due for that period of time. Yeah.
Good.
Any other councilor? Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Excuse me. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
Just to clarify then, the beverage service of $4,400, that's what was budgeted for, and assuming $375 per month for the next 6 months, for 2,250, and does that include, up until the time she closed, our rent that we received, which was?
So the terms of payment were different under the past lease. This
Okay.
one's under the new terms and is assuming the $375 for that period of time.
Right.
And that goes up until the end of March.
Oh, because we were
Yeah.
already at the wet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
got it. I'm clear. It's clear now. Thank you.
It's a little confusing.
Yeah. Because this year's been like
Yeah.
2 or 3.
Any other councilor? Are you ready question?
Question.
All those in favor of the motion? It is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Under 13.0 plan, we have 13.1 rezoning, 135 Old Portman Road, Liverpool. And Mike McLeod, our Director of Planning, is at the presentation for us. We'd like to take the recommendation on 13.1. Deputy Mayor Kelly?
I recommend that the Council of the Region of Queens Consolidated give notice of its intention to amend the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaws, PID number 70019-419, from restricted residential R1 to downtown commercial C1, and that a public hearing be held on November the 10th, 2020 in the council chambers of Municipal Building 249 White Point Road in Liverpool, Nova Scotia at 9 a.m.
Seconded to that, Council Fisk. Mike, would you like to give us an overview on this?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as a brief background, the municipality has received an application to rezone 2 parcels of land on Old Port Mattoon Road in Liverpool, civic numbers being number 135 and 133. The owners of these properties wish to open a restaurant on one of the parcels as well as to install gas pumps. The parcel at 143 Old Port Mattoon Road is currently zoned as neighborhood commercial C3, and the property at 135 Old Port Mattoon Road is restricted residential R1. The future land use designation of 143 is designated as commercial, while the 135 has a future land use designation of residential. The uses being proposed by the applicant would be those typically found under the Highway Commercial C2 designation. And as such, the only way that the uses could be permitted would be through a rezoning process. Restaurants, obviously fairly self-explanatory as to the use, but gas bars would fall under the classification of automobile service stations, which is permitted in the C2 zone. The municipal planning strategy contains policy whereby council, in looking at such applications, identifies a number of things that council would take into consideration in evaluating an amendment proposal. So a few additional considerations. The area of Old Port Mattoon Road, it's predominantly low-density residential development. Civic number 143 contains an existing convenience store. Most of you'll know that as the West End Convenience. Civic number 135 contains an existing single detached dwelling. The property at 143 Old Port Mattoon Road is actually on the corner of George Street as well as a corner lot. It has approximately 90 feet of frontage on George Street and 60 feet of frontage on Old Port Mattoon Road. It has approximately 6,500 square feet in area. For a C3 zone, the land use bylaw identifies minimum lot size as 10,000 square feet, so this would be considered an existing non-conforming lot. However, the use predated land use regulations, so it's considered existing non-conforming. 135 Old Port Mattoon Road has approximately 120 feet on Old Port Mattoon Road and is about 26,000 square feet in area. The property itself is of sufficient size that would enable off-street parking should a rezoning process be approved. The municipal, George Street and Old Port Mattoon Road are both municipal streets owned and maintained by the municipality that services the surrounding neighborhoods. The streets are relatively narrow with no sidewalks and limited shoulders. The volume of traffic is, in this area is significant at times, as it does facilitate traffic to and from the elementary school. The applicant, as part of his request, has included a consideration that should, consideration not to be given to rezoning both properties. They have requested that the single parcel of 135, which is the residential property, be rezoned to allow for the restaurant use. So several options, one being maintain status quo, whereby we maintain the current zoning of the parcels. Option 2 would be to rezone both parcels, and option 3 would be to amend the bylaw to rezone the 135 Old Port Mattoon Road. Staff have reviewed the application and do have some concerns with the potential impacts that this proposed uses would have on the surrounding residential neighborhood. Planning Advisory Committee met on September the 17th to review the application. It was the general feeling of the committee at the time that the proposed uses of the applicants could benefit the community, but the location did raise some concerns. The committee were not supportive of the installation of gas pumps at this location. However, were more receptive to the idea of rezoning 135 Old Port Mattoon Road to allow for the restaurant. So the committee's recommendation was in favor of amending the municipal planning strategy and the land use bylaw to rezone 135 Old Port Mattoon Road. Part of that recommendation, however, was that the zoning designation reflect the downtown commercial C1 zone as opposed to the highway commercial C2. As the C1 zone allows for a smaller list of permitted uses, but would still allow for a restaurant at this location.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions or comments of councillors? Councillor McLeod?
Mike, it's been brought to my attention just by one of the PAC members when the person didn't really think about these questions initially, and there's just a few concerns. One is if it is zoned to include a restaurant or a family type operation, where does the liquor control come into that? Do they have to apply later on to have a liquor license?
No, I guess that's kind of an accessory use to the restaurant, so
Okay.
they would just have to apply to the alcohol and gaming for their liquor license, so
Okay.
that would be good.
But their intention is to have a family type restaurant, which
Yes.
basically you envision, you know, just no lounge component or no liquor license in that.
No, that's right.
And that would have to go through the provincial requirement.
That's right. The serving of alcohol doesn't change the primary use of a restaurant. So if it was a separate use of the property, a separate lounge or something like that, then that's different. But the serving of alcohol doesn't affect the restaurant use.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other councillor? Councillor Johnson?
Am I correct, Mike, in what you said, if we approve this recommendation, they still can't put a gas bar in there?
That's correct.
They cannot?
They cannot. That's correct.
That's a tough one for me, where we don't have a gas station in Cali. And I don't think you have any gas services this side of the bridge either, do you?
Yes.
They actually are out the highway.
Oh, just right. All right.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Fancy?
So, Mike, just kind of fill me in with, why would we not want them to have gas there? I asked that question.
Just the parts, I guess this is a residential neighborhood, potential for gas pump leaks or spillage, contamination of property, of the surrounding property. So really, it's the nature of the surrounding community that's of concern. That this is not it was felt that it's not the proper location for that type of use.
Can I continue?
Yeah.
The only thing about that is that I find, especially with the COVID and everything else, the little stores are becoming more popular. one-stop shopping, it makes it easier for them, it's just a matter of could it be a problem? Like if you go up to Weston right now, it's somewhat of a problem because they got so much traffic there that people just are coming, they're just flocking to the little local store.
Oh, they are.
So, yeah, I'm kind of like Councilor Johnson, I'm kind of in a quandary of which is, you know, I'm just still trying to think about it.
And it certainly wasn't the uses, I guess, when discussed at planning advisory, the uses that were being proposed, were not really the concern, it's more the location of the use.
Councilor Muse?
I've been up campaigning in that area in the last few nights, and a lot of the people, you know, they're worried about the traffic in that area especially. And, you know, most of them didn't have a problem with the restaurant, but to put a gas bar there, you know, they you know, there's gonna be more traffic and it's gonna have the gas tanks and everything there, and they have a big concern. So, like you said, most of them had no problem with the restaurant. But also, can't he come back later on after the new planning strategy and then ask to be certified that he can get gas pumps in there?
There's always the opportunity to apply to amend the bylaws. They're meant to be a living document, and there's a process, just like we're going through now. So I guess the next council would have to deal with any requests that should have come forward in the future, so.
Any other councilor? Councilor Fancy? Furley, excuse me.
Last time.
Councilor Fancy has his hand up a lot, so it seems to be.
Councilor Frederick doesn't. This is a quandary because, you know, we talk about retaining our youth and bringing our youth back, and, you know, Jonathan and Robin have, you know, come back and they've created something that's really special. And it's not like they just want to do one thing. They have a whole long-range plan for what they want to do. So, you know, part of it is, you know, we have the April Williams and the Chris Ingrams and the Liz Browns who have all created something, and they're unique, and they came through the same process, and we approved it when it did go against what we were kind of not expecting. But they've all been successful and are going to be successful. Because of the restaurant, you know, you're going to have traffic. I think the bigger issue is what can we do with Old Port Mattoon Road in the future. I hate to push this aside because exactly what we need in you know, in Liverpool is to have more people involved in, you know, creating business. So again, I understand the hesitation by some people, but I also see the promises that, you know, putting in a gas bar is heavily regulated. Not saying it's going to go through, but we want to give them the opportunity. We have a public hearing. That's where the public will be able to state how they're feeling about that community. I won't be supporting this motion, and I think that we need to look forward in different eyes post-COVID, when we get to the post-COVID. And just like we did with all those people that I mentioned, we have to look at it differently. And so I won't be supporting this motion, but I will be supporting the way forward for Jonathan.
So I think it's fitting for me to give a clarification at this point. If this recommendation, which is now a motion, does not pass, then it needs to go back through PAC again, and there will be delay. And if it does pass, there's an ability for the proponent to go back to PAC with the gas bar portion. So I would want to make it very clear that you're adding a considerable delay to the ability to put a restaurant in for the developer if they so wish by defeating this motion. So that is the choice of each individual councillor here at the table today, but I wanted everyone to be aware of the ramification of the vote.
Thank you.
Any other counselor? Counselor Johnson?
Do we know if the gas bar is a showstopper for their entire business case? Do we have any idea of that to any of our discussions? What I'm saying is if we can't go back and look for a solution, as Councilor Frelick suggests, around the gas bar piece, or even if it meant a delay versus moving a project forward, as compared to saying no and the project just stopped. You know, because a restaurant and a gas bar is utopia to the owner for their business case.
That's right.
Is a restaurant standalone and no gas bar, is that satisfactory at this time, knowing that they have an option? I guess we can't speak for them.
That
Nice
was
to
one of
hear
the
from them.
options as part of the submission of the applicants, was that as an option two, would be to consider, the opening of the restaurant, as, if council was not comfortable with, both requests, that was the option two.
Right, thanks.
And I would caution council that we're getting a little off the motion. If we do approve going to a public hearing, and it is approved by the next council through that process, then it's still up to the proponent whether they build a restaurant. It's not a mandatory that you have to build a restaurant. It is still the option of the owner. Councilor Muse?
I haven't answered my question.
Yes. Councilor Fancy?
Yes, I think what Councilor Johnson is saying too is that I'm glad to know what we're voting on, because if somebody doesn't, if they say, well, we don't, if we say, well, we want to look at the gas bar later on, and they say this is a deal killer, well, we don't want to kill the deal. That they would not want to build if they can't do the whole component. So it is very, very much knowing what when we're voting on this, what we're voting on.
I can tell you, Councilor Fancy, you're voting on whether there is a public hearing for a restaurant and a rezoning on lot 135, either to approve that or not approve that. That's what you're voting on today.
But I disagree with, because I think we need to know more, because I wouldn't want to see them not do anything if we just voted on this, and I'd like to know background too.
And I understand what you're speaking of.
Yes.
At this point today, you are going to have that motion that's in front of you to deliberate on and vote on.
Okay.
And if you vote it down, there is no project going forward. It goes back to PAC at a later date if the applicant still wishes to put one in. So that's where we are. Hopefully that helps clarify. Any other councilors? Deputy Mayor Kelly, do you have your hand up?
Yeah. Well, I can add a lot to this. I voted in PAC for a recommendation to move on the gas pumps. Everything that the applicant said made sense in what he wants to do for that area and how he wants to grow his business. He's competing with the convenience stores with gas stations. The only way he can compete with those convenience stores is if he has gas there, because that's what they're going to the other ones for, gas and what the convenience store offers. So he has this convenience store, and now the only other thing that he can offer to compete with them is the gas. He also wants to have a restaurant, but at the time, it was voted at PAC and the recommendation was to not have a gas bar there. And again, as Mike alluded to, is that a lot of the conversation revolved around traffic in that area. Traffic's already bad in that area. Adding a restaurant, you know, there's going to be more traffic in that area. And I agree with Councillor Frelick that we need to be looking forward into the future to say, what can we do to make that area? Because it is a developing area. It's in a residential area. I believe it serves a huge purpose being there for the residents of that area. We all know that a lot of the convenience is across the other side of the bridge, and it doesn't leave a lot for the area on this side of the bridge. And for that area, hugely residential area that rely heavily on that convenience store in that area. So I said we should, and if you just look at it, just to give you some indication, is that under C1, he could decide to have a warehouse there. So a warehouse, you could have 18-wheelers come and day in and day out, because under C1, he could have a warehouse there, right? So he could have vehicles coming in and out every day. So I mean, it's all really, to put it in perspective about what this developer wants for that area. You know, the restaurant is gonna be a huge, you know, to have a family restaurant there, and he's gonna have loads of parking there. He's gonna open up the whole, front of that building, where he's creating a restaurant to have, lots of parking there. And the way it was presented to us and how it was going to be done, I felt it was good that, to have the gas bar there as well, and I thought it all would have worked very well together, and it would have given the opportunity to grow that area and to grow that business person, for his plans in the future and what he wants to do there. So I will be voting for this motion, because I do want, the applicant to be able to move forward with either part of this plan right now, and hopefully I'll encourage him to come back to the new council, the new PAC, for a zoning change in the future to the other parcel of land, so in order for him to grow that business with a gas bar as well. And hopefully in doing that, we can work with them, and work with the region to sort out that area. Because I mean, not just because there's lots of traffic there because of, the convenience store. It's the school at the top of that street, which creates lots of traffic there, and that road has been as narrow as it's been narrow since the year dot. And there really needs to be something done there, regardless of what, businesses are put in there in the future. We should look at that and make that a safer area.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have Councilor McLeod next.
I attended the planning meeting as well, and the applicant initially had proposed the two developments, including the gas bar, but he did state that that he would be very comfortable with just the restaurant at this certain time, and if there's any provisions in the future, knowing how the traffic in the area, the restaurant in the area suits the traffic that will be increased with the restaurant. And I feel that we should go forward with this motion and let him make the decision in the future as to how we'd like to add an additional feature of the pumps, gas pumps.
Thank you, Councilor McLeod. Any other councilor? Councilor Fisk?
I too attended that planning meeting, and this gentleman that brought forth the his plan, very smart young gentleman that's moving ahead. I can see that, and I was one that was against the gas pumps at the present time. I was all for the restaurant, and I'm just echoing what Councilor McLeod said, and I will be voting for the motion.
Any other councilor? Councilor Furley?
Is there any sort of amendment to this motion that would allow us to move forward with the?
In what respect would you think the amendment would take?
Pardon me?
What would you think the amendment would be?
I have no idea. That's the challenge here.
I guess to try to figure out exactly where your question's taking us, you have a motion before us, which is a majority recommendation of the Planning Advisory Committee. It recommends the restaurant proceed to the public hearing. It does not recommend that the gas bar proceed to a public hearing. It was their decision that they were recommending only the restaurant and not the gas bar. And so to incorporate anything into this motion that includes a gas bar would be in conflict with Warnio's Rules of Order and would be a substantive change to the motion. So your options today are to approve the recommendation from PAC, which is now a motion on the floor before us, to reject it, or to refer it back to PAC. And if you were to do that, it would be to the new PAC committee, which would be in November, and you would add a delay of probably several months to the opportunity for a restaurant. So those are your options, Councilor Phil.
Thank you very much.
Any other councilor? Are you ready for the question?
Question.
All those in favor of the motion? I have unanimous. Thank you very much. brings us to 13.2, Queens Accessibility Advisory Committee recommendation. Would the lead, Tyler Johnson, please come forward? And I would ask who would like to take the lead. Councilor Crowley?
I shall recommend to the Council of the Region of Queens Municipality to appoint Lindsay Polk, Wayne Hoskins, Kelly Foxman, Tyler Rowland, and David Rutherham as public members of the Queens Accessory Advisory Committee.
Seconder for that? Councilor Clancy? Elise, would you like to give us a quick overview of this?
Yes, thank you. Having been here about 2 months, we have put out a survey and we put out a call for applicants to come to this advisory committee. Under the Accessibility Act, Nova Scotia is asking all municipalities to develop a localized accessibility plan with the help of local residents that make up the advisory committee. And it was the directorate, the provincial directorate, that dictated every member of the committee should have either a disability or work with people who have disabilities to strongly represent their needs. So we did have a few people just sort of out of the blue come with their applications, and there were some that I actively solicited, and we had a set of 9 strong applicants with a nice range of varying abilities and disabilities, different geographic residents of Queens County, and a range of ages. When the deadline passed on September 18th, the CAO and Director of Planning and myself went through the applications and quite quickly were in agreement with the 5 members of the public that would make up the committee. But we'll have to wait on the 2 councillors to join. And these were our 5 names that, as I say, have a nice range of abilities and representation that can help guide us in the terms of reference. They are to help prioritize the coordinator's activities. And the few people that would not have an official seat, I trust will still be very useful, will encourage their participation. The door is not closed to them.
Thank you, Elise. Any councillor have a question or comment on this item? Deputy Mayor Kelly?
I'd just like to say, Lisa, you've done a lot in 2 months. And I really appreciate your work on this. I'm so excited about this going through, and you guys starting to meet, and so you'll be putting together this committee will be putting together what we would consider an accessibility strategy.
Yes.
For the region of Queens to deliberate on and budget accordingly for what's required in our community.
Absolutely, yes.
Amazing. Thank you very much for your work on this, and to Mike from planning and all the staff involved. Thank you.
Councillor Fisk?
I heard you say that you had a broad range through representing the region. Does that include North Queens and around those areas?
We do have one of the participants is a Caledonia resident.
Greenfield area? Mill Village area?
No, I don't think. Brooklyn, Port Mattoon, Western Head, Caledonia, and Milton.
Okay, thank you.
Any other councillors? Councillor Crowley?
Well, as Deputy Mayor Kelly said, I mean, this is amazing, more than we could have planned for. It's encouraging to see the involvement you've had in 2 months. And I'd just like you to clarify a little bit about the process and what your role in it is, because I know that we're looking at municipality-owned areas and buildings. But how does that spill over into the community? How do you see that spill over?
Well, of course, there are templates put forth by the province but they recognize we need to be guided by the residents. And yes, one of my mandates is to first assess the physical assets and the municipal services, making sure that our information communications are accessible, different formats, all of that. But at the same time, making connections with the businesses, helping them access grants to improve their accessibility. I did put in a community accessibility grant already for Queen's Place and have been encouraging the community halls to do the same. I'm working with the Beach Meadows Community Center to help with that. So hopefully with the people from the different areas, they too might have more, grassroots connections and help support really the community projects. But there are a lot of grants out there, and I trust that we can get beyond the municipal assets with our recommendations, yeah.
Thank you, and I love the fact that, the people that didn't get selected are still gonna be in the conversation, because
Of course.
that's very important, because, with these people, you brought a diverse, options, but at the same time, there's so much more we can learn from other folks in their counties, so, I like the fact that they're not just, like you said, closing the door on them. Right, so thank you very much.
Councillor Pansy?
Yes, going along with that, it's, again, you're looking at the region's properties and things that we own. You can set a stage for other things, like, for instance, Western Housing is really a concern to me because a lot of their housing isn't up to accessibility. And by 2030, we're supposed to be at a stage of having things accessible. I don't know if things are gonna be grandfathered in or what's going to take place, but what we don't want to do is see rental housing being shut down and things like that. So, and it could be even for other people around who have rentals, and so it might be ways you could be able to work with others and be able to, because I don't know all who's looking at this. They're just kind of sitting back waiting, and then if they wait too long, it could affect so many other aspects of our community.
Yes, well, I can say there are a number of grants through the housing program to help even landlords improve the accessibility of their homes. There are for just residents can improve their houses as well. I've noticed that the building code, the provincial building code, has made huge leaps and bounds in the past year based on the work of the directorate. And at the same time, I would love to have some workshops for the builders, the contractors. I've spoken to some developers who have some awareness already. And I do think that the next couple of years, things will move quickly in terms of awareness and new construction techniques.
I'm more concerned with the old construction, because the new construction already has to follow a certain guideline, but the old construction, we don't get down to the end where people say, well, I'm renting my place on fine, so somebody tells me I'm not fine.
And maybe it starts, when people approach our offices actually looking for a permit to build a ramp, because they have those needs, and I've been speaking with the inspection officers, and we'll try to engage with people at that point, and also looking at the pharmacies who give, adaptive equipment for the bathrooms. I've been speaking with the community health team at the hospital, that they go their home support, so letting them be aware of grants and things that, where I can help them.
Good.
So definitely
Thank you very much.
lots to do.
Any other councillor? Councillor Johnson?
You spoke of funding opportunities for other than the region, like the community halls. How big a window do we have on that?
Right now, they're ongoing. Some deadlines have passed, some might have to wait until next spring. The business ability grants are ongoing, open, community has their pockets. And some are not even labeled as disability grants, but the federal New Horizon grant for senior development, they're quite large and they're ongoing.
And you can help people navigate through that system?
Certainly, yeah, and mostly to give them the specifications, the details, to make sure that they are at the most accessible standards.
Excellent work in a very short period of time. So.
Councillor McLeod?
Yes, I was contacted by the Seaside Community Center in Beach Meadows, and I understand you've been helping them with the grant, and that's under the New Horizon Seniors Program. And it's excellent. I think they've got the grant just about ready to submit, asking for input from, some people to complement it with with their needs that they need in the community. So I think that's really well done. Thank you so much for that. And we're delighted that these programs are available. They would never have known unless they had your input. So thank you so much.
Any other councillor? Well, seeing none, then thank you very much, Elise. Very appreciated. And at this point, I'd like to advise council that the update that Elise had provided last week to councillors is able to be shared with the public.
We have to vote on this, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we'll get to that. So, are you ready for the vote? The question?
Question.
All those in favor? It is unanimous. That brings us to item 14.0 report. And under reports, we have 14.1 council implementation report. They have been provided with the agenda to everyone. Are there any questions on this report? Hearing none, I know everyone's had a chance to review them. That brings us to the end of the active agenda today. We have no in-camera items. As this is the last planned council meeting prior to next council being sworn in near the end of the month, I would like to thank all council members for your contributions over the past 4 years. And I would like to briefly give everyone a chance to have a few words, and I'll start with Deputy Mayor Kelly, and I'll work right around the room today.
Well, it's been an interesting 4 years, and all I can say is that I've enjoyed being on council. I'm very impressed on what we've achieved. I believe that we're going in the right direction. All the things that motions that we've passed in the last 4 years has set up an excellent foundation for the next council to go forward, and I truly hope that I'm a part of that next council and to continue the work that we've done so far on all of the great motions that we've passed. So we really have created a great foundation and a springboard for lots of great things to happen in the next 4 years. So I hope to be back.
Thank you. Councilor Muse?
4 years went fast. I learned a lot. There was a lot of different things. There was a lot of councillors on here that have been here for a few years, and you learned a lot from them. Some of the decisions, I see some of the pamphlets saying that the council didn't get along. I don't see how we could ever, all 8 of us, be on the same side every time. So I really don't think that was a big thing. I think we all voted the way that we voted. Didn't have a second decision on the votes. Like I said, I'm hoping to be back the next 4 years too. But it was a real good one.
Thank you, Councilor Muse. Councilor Frilly?
As everyone has said, the time went fast. For me, 8 years went by in a blink, and it's hard to believe. I've certainly learned a lot. We've experienced many different issues in those 8 years. You try to do your best, and you try to make everybody happy that's come forward. And that doesn't always work, but we made our decision based on the facts, and concerns about, for me personally, for new council coming in, and about training, because we've had, you know, for the first term, there was very few opportunities. We were sent off to Pearl. And as new councillors, you really don't know what to ask, you don't know what to expect, so I'm looking forward to kind of a different change in that, and how we're educated and how we're brought up to speed as councillors, because you don't want to waste any time. Like we all said, 4 years went by so fast, and to take one of those years or 2 of those years to try to figure it all out shouldn't happen. It has to change that way, because important decisions have to be made from, you know, as soon as you leave that gate. So I'm very proud of the work that we've done. It's been an honor to sit here for 8 years, and you know, it's going to be very different. I'm hoping to move forward, of course, and but if not, then I look back at these 8 years with great pride that we've made the changes we did. So forward together.
Thank you, Councillor Froelich, and I would agree that although we have had significant training at the beginning of every council, there's always room for more training.
Much more.
Councillor Fancy?
Yes, I'll start off with I always call the funny part of it is that we'll get rid of the 3 F's. It's not the bad words, we've got all 2 F's. Well, actually it's 3, because it's 2, so we won't be honest, because it makes it hard for our mayor to be able to try to find which F is being up to the back. But anyway, it has been fun. I will really miss Raymond. I'm going to have to get him a major cup of coffee, because he brings me a coffee every. I don't know how big a coffee mug is going to have to be, but again, I remember when I first came on, when I've been here for 8 years, and Kathleen Rayfuse at the time, the CEO, said, you're going to find after the first 4 years, you're just going to start to know what's going on. So it's a long learning curve, and one of the biggest learning curves is nothing happens quickly. And that's one of the things I found, right away, because you want it done now, and it just doesn't happen. So it takes patience. It takes, people are going to be upset with you, because even going around campaigning, people say, well, why isn't my road paved? So we're supposed to be the road pavers. We're supposed to be everything which we can't be. And so it takes a learning curve from the people we serve, but it also takes learning curve from each other. The only thing I would say going forward as a new council, if I'm on it or not, is I always say, let's try to be kind. And I think that's something that sometimes we all come in with passion. Where you run for an office because you got passion. Or at least you should be running because you got passion. So a passion comes in here and it shows forth in everything we do. And even like things we've gone through today, it's passion. You want things for people. You want to do things for people. But let us be kind with each other. And that's, I always say, with going forward in the next 4 years, whoever's on here, try to, that will help people work better together if you be kind and just be, see what other, I learned back years ago is that people say things because they believe it's right, whether I believe it's right or not. You know, most people don't do things just to create problems. So it's to work forward with the new council, whoever is here, to work together and be kind with each other, and that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Fancy. Councillor Johnson?
All I can do is reiterate what everybody else said. The learning curve for me, first time around, has been steep. It's been like trying to climb Everest. And you learn by stepping on the landmine so you don't do it again. You know, that's been my experience for this term. And yeah, those of us who have options, you know, I'd love to be part of the next council, but it's in the hands of the voters on Saturday. So, and I wish Raymond all the best in his retirement, and maybe we'll both sit on the lawn and commiserate in a week's time from now or something like that, but, and I understand, you know, some of the buzz of, you know, about council and getting along, but I think, you know, we did a fairly good job, and I really encourage the new council that when we make decisions, and it builds respect, if we vote on principles and take the personalities outside the building when you vote. That's what builds respect, that's what makes good, honest decision on behalf of a council, and I think that is a key going forward, and I learned enough in 4 years to be dangerous for the next 4, so we'll have to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Fire?
Well, it's been a long haul for me for 16 years, since the year 2000. And, you know, putting your name on the ballot is something to be proud of when you are successful. And I think there's a real learning curve, if you want to use that reference, to the fact of what are we as councillors? What role do we really have in council chambers and in the community? And I spoke to our CAO not long ago. We talked about the training that, you know, that councillors get. They get general basic training, but I think the big training that we need is to understand what is our role with staff, what is our actual role within the community. And sometimes we're a liaison between we're the grassroots, we're the people that our community see every day. And we're often bombarded by questions that are responsibilities of other levels of government, and that's pretty standard. We've all been there. And I think, but that's what we are. And to carry that message on to the other levels is a good thing to do, and it also gives them an idea. I mean, they're not always out there in the public like we are. So sharing responsibilities, sharing ideas, and sharing concerns with the other levels to get the job done and work as a partner with everyone. That's a big thing that I find we should do more of and really concentrate on. It's a big sacrifice as councillors in your personal life. You know, you go out to the community events and you attend functions and you're there to answer questions of the general public. And I think that's been very rewarding, because we actually know, we engage the public in those discussions. And I really like the fact that we are now being able to have our meetings online and in video and audio, and it gives our general public more of an input. And they can become involved in that way and respond to a lot of the discussions that we have. I appreciate the wonderful staff we have at the Region of Queens, because they're the ones that do all the background work. They're the ones that make the recommendations, and we rely a lot on them, the information, because we're not always out there. We do not know the answers. And I find that we've had really good discussions, and we've had good debates, and we don't always agree, and we always, what is that term, agree to disagree. But I think we've done really good things for our community. I know it takes a lot of effort to put your name on the ballot and to work on behalf of the general public, because you're never always going to know what you're going to be hit with. And I think the public respect us. I think our public and our residents know that if we're approachable, they can come and talk to any one of us. And we have to sit down and really, you know, they always say you had 2 ears and 1 mouth. Well, that's listen a lot more, because there's a lot of information and a lot of experience that our residents have that we've never even known anything about. So I've really enjoyed that part, and I hope I can be in council again for the future of our residents. And we've got a lot more to happen in Queens. We've gone through really hard times with the Bowater closure. Our mayor and our council really dealt with that. We've had wonderful things happen in our community. We had the call center built. That provided a lot of employment. Now that property is vacant, but there's a lot of ideas and a lot of things we can do for the general public and provide employment to get more involved in those aspects. And we've done great things with our infrastructure. We've taken advantage of government grants and gas tax money, and we put it to really good use. That was money well spent. And I know that that helps our community grow, and it helps others that want to invest in our community know that they have all those great new services that they're gonna need if they decide they want to do, invest in our community for business. And I really appreciate the input from our local citizens.
Thank you, Councilman Fry. Councilor Fisk?
First of all, I want to thank District 6 for allowing me to represent them in the last 8 years and have the confidence in myself to do it for them. I also take this time to thank my fellow councillors that I dealt with the last 8 years, in 4 years a couple of them. I've enjoyed my time here. I retired from actually being a staff member of the Region of Queens back in 2008. I laid down for 4 years thinking that's the way life was, and I got a little bit tired of that, so I put my name in the hat. But otherwise, I've enjoyed my 8 years. Now I have to move on. The only thing that was disappointing was Councillor Fairley gave me a heart attack. I'd like to inform you, as I'm sitting up here today, that you had nothing to do with that. It just happened. So, in that note, I'm thinking I'm leaving on a good note. I fulfilled my my dream a little bit, and I look forward to maybe laying back a little bit. And I noticed also in the room today there's several members trying to go into council for next term. I wish you all the very best. In any way, try your best if you get to be elected, and listen to what the councillor said today. They're really meaningful people. They really like to try. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fisk. And enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
As mayor, my job is to maintain decorum in council chambers, and I've spoken very little at council because it's my job to help councillors get to a decision. And I thank you for that opportunity and for the time that you've spent here in council. And we have, as a council, made great gains in the Region of Queens for our residents. So this being the last council meeting that we're having, it's fitting that we all have a chance to say a few words, and it's very appreciated that you have. Moving on, we have one item left on the agenda, and that's 6.0 adjournment. And I would ask who would like to move that motion. Deputy Mayor Kelly, and seconded by Councilor Muse. Any discussion? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion? It is unanimous, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Who's gonna say question from now on, Raymond?
Somebody else.
I'll do it. I can't wait. I never seen
What's the
anything
process
before.
for turning in the tablets and keys and things like that?
Yeah, for sure.
Gives us the questions from your tablet. We're still on until the end of the month, right?
Who would want that for that 4 years?
I'll do it.
Yep.
Well, actually, I was just finishing
Just like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting.